That game last night almost left Jimmy and me with a lack of words. But we don't have a lack of words because the audio version of this podcast would be terrible.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson with the AHSA Radio Network. That's me. Jimmy Stein with Bama Online. That's him. Want to thank you everydayers. Want to thank FanDuel for being a sponsor. Want to thank God for giving me such a beautiful day yesterday. Everything was awesome. Jimmy, that game yesterday, I felt like Stefan from SNL, like just starting off, with like, this game's got everything. It's got juggling midgets and 3 offensive pass interferences by one team that I've never seen happen before. It's got comebacks and blowouts and close games. It's got everything. That was one of the most amazing games I've ever been to in my life. And if you had told, it would have been one of the most amazing games if it had just stopped at 28-0 Alabama, because that's amazing in its own right. This game had a safety, 3 offensive pass interferences. It had a freshman, a 17-year-old who was the best player on the field, full of NFL dudes. It had 2 quarterbacks throwing the ball like nobody's business. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was the most surreal, incredible game I think I've ever been to. And I've got so much to say, but I'm going to let you go for a minute.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to even pick out a place to start, but I really think there's 4. I mean, I think the right word for me would be epic. There's 4 different, but it was like an epic movie with 4 parts. I mean, the first part was an epic start for Alabama. I think when Alabama raced out to the 28-0 lead that became 30-7, that was about as good as this Alabama team is going to play. I mean, that was the best team in college football. They were fantastic, and it was just an epic historical start, and as good as this team could play. Awesome. Then give Georgia a ton of credit. An epic comeback. They could have so easily packed it in and said it was not our night. We just got to regroup and replan against Alabama. No, down 30-7, Carson Beck went to work. Carson Beck proved, I think, his NFL value last night. I thought he in particular was fantastic in the comeback. And I would just say that comeback was epic. I mean, that was how they got off the mat like that to take the lead. Just unreal. Then the last 2 epics. The epic play by Ryan Williams that won the game for Alabama. I mean, it literally won the game for Alabama. And, mentioning that he's 17 is now beyond. It was fun and it was funny, and then it got over said. And now it's just forget how old he is. It doesn't matter. I mean, the kid could win the Biletnikoff at 17 as the best wide receiver in college football. I think that's reasonable. And Jim Nagy, how about this tweet last night from the Senior Bowl's Jim Nagy? If Ryan is 3 and done and goes to the NFL and plays in the Senior Bowl, he would do so as a 19-year-old, because the Senior Bowl is played in January and his birthday's in February. Played in the Senior Bowl at 19.
They'd be like, you got high school Senior Bowl? No.
Yeah. So that was the 3rd epic. It was an epic all-time play. That we will see the replay of that Ryan Williams touchdown 200 more times just this year alone, and that's probably not 200 enough times. That play won the game for Alabama, and then of course the final epic, the epic play by Xavier Brown in the end zone to win the game. If Georgia had scored there, it would have gone to overtime, and who knows what would have happened, but it didn't, because Xavier Brown, the freshman, made a play. They picked on him all night. I think there were 8 individual targeted plays at Xavier. He did give up a touchdown, but like all freshmen, he hung in there. I'll say all freshmen. He hung in there. He got better.
Like good freshmen.
Yeah, like good. And he made the play at the end, and it was an NFL type play too. Xavier Brown, he's so outstanding. It's just impossible not to be in the shadow of Ryan as far as that freshman class. But we would be, if it wasn't for Ryan, we'd be talking about Zabian. This would be the Zabian Brown podcast about, how good that kid is as a 18-year-old freshman. So again, 4 epics: Alabama's epic start, Georgia's epic comeback, the epic play by Ryan Williams to give Alabama the lead, and then Zabian Brown clinches it with just a fantastic cornerback play in the end zone.
I've never been prouder to be the host of the Ryan Williams podcast. I'll tell you that. And last night it was kind of funny. I don't know if any of y'all follow Jimmy and me on Twitter. You should, because we can be fun occasionally. Well, last night I guess I was fun because I may have partaken in some adult beverages, and when I'm in a good mood and I've been drinking like that, which isn't often for me to drink like that, I get like. Remember when the Houston Astros were going to create a series with the New York Yankees and Seinfeld, and the 3 Houston guys came up and all they kept saying was that, you tell that Bastich, I'm going to try and clean it up. You tell that Bastich and, that's some bleep, stuff like that. And they were doing it in a friendly way, the way Southerners do. Like, oh, I love that son of a beep, And that's what I was doing all last night. I was like, what's up, you son of a beep? And I kept like, high-fiving people, and somebody finally introduced me to another guy who was just like watching me and sort of giggling, and I high-fived him and said, roll down, you bastard, and you son of a beat. And I put my arm around him, and my friend goes, Luke, that's a federal judge. I said, well, hurry up and take my picture so I can blackmail him later. I mean, I was giddy as a schoolgirl. It was bananas. The whole game was a blast. And look, I'm glad you said that, because we're going to wax poetic about this game from Alabama's perspective for a long time.
That episode of Seinfeld has to be like the real Astros fans' least favorite episode of all time. They're probably like, we're from Houston, Texas, the 4th largest city in the U.S. We're not from Hazard County, Kentucky.
Yeah, probably. But it is also a true representation of Southerners. I don't know about Houstonians. But, I'm glad you brought up what you did about Georgia, because I do want to say this. I'm not trying to be like gracious winner, wink, wink. I want to say this like for real. Man, I appreciate it. I appreciate Georgia's comeback. I don't like that they did it. I wish we had blown them out. But man, if you're a college football fan, and now, Jimmy, I think you and I watch even more college football than we ever have probably. And I think we understand how hard it is to do what they did against this team in that environment. Kudos to Bryant-Denny Stadium and everybody who showed up and everybody who was out there. Look, I hated y'all when we were leaving, because, see, also some other people in my group, another friend and my wife especially, we had all been partaking in the partying, and she has to hug everybody when we leave. Another Southern thing. And I'm like, get out of here.
100,000.
And I'm like, let's get out of here. And so she's hugging people like she's some kind of out-of-town childless aunt that she has all these friends, and she's like, oh, I just love you. And I'm like, get in the car and let's go. And finally we did, and it all worked out. But, man, I saw a bunch of people last night like, man, y'all got to do a podcast tonight. And I was like, if I can get back to Birmingham in time, and I didn't get back till way late, and then you were already asleep, and I stayed up and watched some of the game again, because I was like, man, I am not going to appreciate this game the way I should. Last night, I was like, I'm just not going to. But I do appreciate Georgia's comeback. That was really, really hard to do. I want Georgia fans to know, dude, that was pretty cool. Now, I know some things suck for y'all. Like, we've won 8 of the last 9 and all that stuff. That stuff does suck for y'all. But to get off the mat and do that against us last night, I can't do anything but applaud you. I mean,
it's like Alabama had a 28-0 lead, but I don't really want to play them again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, compliment. I mean, I'd prefer not to play Georgia again, but hey, you might have to. You might see them in Atlanta. You might see them in the playoff. Those are 2 of the best teams in college football, and it just a knockdown, drag out. And again, Georgia's comeback is what made it a classic. And like Luke said, I mean, I just really respect what they did. I think for college kids, that's really hard. I mean, I think the tendency for players that age is to get frustrated, angry.
Say it's not our night.
Yeah, say it's not our night, and it's done. Wave the white flag. You see fans do that all the time. How many fans do you see on message boards quit the first quarter, or ahead or behind? You got to play for 60 minutes. And Georgia did that, and so it was a classic because of the grit that Georgia showed while behind. But hey, this is Locked On Bama, and man, last night was I think a solidification or a validation. There's a better word, a validation of the transition and how smooth the transition has been. Not that, hey, Kalen DeBoer's the guy. Let's give him a 25-year contract. He's the next king. It's not that. That's an over. Let's play a season of football at least before we decide what the rest of his career is going to look like. But it was a validation of how seamless the transition was, not just from the greatest coach of all time to Kalen, but how the players with the schemes. I mean, Alabama is ready to beat Georgia in game 4, having a brand new offense, a brand new defense, freshmen everywhere, Kalen DeBoer on the sidelines, Nick in the press box, and only in game 4, Alabama's ready to beat Georgia, which means they can beat anybody in college football.
All right, I'm going to tell you about FanDuel. Man, if you love FanDuel, then you were loving FanDuel last night watching this game, because I bet you couldn't put your phone down and your TV down because you were just getting in all the action. There was a lot of it. But today, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, and that's guaranteed. And when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel.com, and that's only on FanDuel.com, because FanDuel.com is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook. Yeah, this is a Ryan Williams podcast, and we're going to talk about Ryan Williams in the third segment. But I do want to talk a little bit about, and again, we're going to do this all week. This is a game we're going to cover all week, but I want to talk about Kalen DeBoer and a little bit what he learned, and also Jalen Milroe, because in a way, Ryan Williams also outshone Jalen Milroe, who just ascended to the top of the Heisman charts. I don't give a dang about Miami and Cam Ward. I had a whole solo thing on how Cam Ward has been looking great, and he was. And he looked pretty good against Virginia Tech. He looked fine, but Miami also had to get a little lucky at the end of that game to win it, and he did have some picks. And now Jalen had a pick in this game, but it was fluky and it was weird. Meanwhile, look, it's hard to even pick out what his best pass of the night was, but I mean,
probably the one to Jam Miller. But like you said,
that's what I was going to say, the wheel route.
But there were so many. He was spectacular and efficient. The turnover was not a bad play.
His fault.
It's not his fault. It wasn't a terrible play on his part. Just that's how sometimes football works out. But he was efficient as a passer. He was spectacular as a passer. And then, of course, with his legs, I think he was responsible for 85% of the Alabama offense, which was nearly 500 yards against an elite defense full of top NFL prospects. And God, Jalen, he was at another level last night. I mean, he may not win the Heisman because someone else does, but Jalen Milroe, I think, proved last night that he is worthy of being awarded a Heisman Trophy. I mean, he's worthy of that. He may be the most outstanding player in college football. That's unbelievable to say, isn't it?
It is, considering around this same time last year, we were wondering if he's ever going to be at Alabama again.
Oh, man, I've got a couple of rants. I don't know if we'll have time for them. Thankfully, we can rant all week. But one rant I would give, and I don't mean it. I don't intend it as anti-Saban. It's not anti-Saban. But I think the difference in Jalen Milroe, besides the new scheme, Luke, is last year's coaching staff at this time, their attitude toward Jalen, and I'm not talking about privately, their attitude toward Jalen is, we're not sure he should be the quarterback of this football team. We're not sure he should be the quarterback. Then when it became completely obvious to anyone on the planet that he should be the quarterback of this football team after the South Florida game, I think they were still slow to fully embrace what Jalen Milroe was. I think it was a slow build to committing the commitment to Jalen Milroe, because I think once they decided, okay, Milroe's going to be the quarterback, what can we do to protect us from Milroe being the quarterback? Let's not put a lot on him. Let's try to make it simple. Let's try to let's try to not put it all on Milroe. And they did a masterful job of winning the games and improving Milroe week to week. That did happen. But the new staff comes in and they embrace Milroe. It's been the Milroe show. It's been, Jalen, you're our guy. We've got this big offensive book, and we're not building it. Well, you're not Penix. You're Jalen Milroe. We're doing this around what you do. And that has been, I think it's been the embrace of Milroe by DeBoer and Nick Sheridan. Whereas a year ago, it wasn't an embrace. It was more like doing, I think they did what they had to do or felt like what they had to do. This has been more like, hey, we got a dude and we're just turning it over to him.
You know, when you said this, it kind of reminded me, because this is true. Because here's the thing. Jalen, once again, for the 5th straight game, went over 2 touchdowns had 2 touchdowns rushing and 2 touchdowns receiving or more. And last night he had 2 and 2. That's never been done before, I don't think.
Certainly never been done in Alabama.
It definitely hasn't been done in Alabama, despite all the running quarterbacks we have. Secondly, you said Alabama was close to 500 yards. They had 547. They had more than 500. So
yeah, Milroe had 85%. That's almost 500 yards on his own.
What you just said reminded me of a time when there was a friend of mine, older friend of mine, we were in New Orleans with, and he again had this for a different reason, had some alcoholic beverages, and he had said, I'm just so tired of cab drivers. I feel like I can never communicate with them. I can't. I want to get a cab in New Orleans. I feel like I can never communicate. They don't understand me. And I was like, nobody understands you right now. So, but we get in the cab, and it was a guy that was obviously not U.S. born. And my friend goes, do you speak in English? We're Hilton. And the guy goes, yes, sir. I clearly understand what you're saying. You mean the Hilton? And he goes, the Riverside Hilton. He goes, yes, Riverside Hilton. That's what my friend said. I was like, he's speaking better English than you. And so that's what Jalen Milroe reminds me of. He's the cab driver that we don't trust. And then we get in the car, and lo and behold, he can drive it better than any of us.
That's right. So he deserves. Hey, look, we've had this line of quarterbacks: Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, Bryce Young. Jalen Milroe absolutely deserves to be in their class. I mean, it's just one more incredible quarterback added to the lineage, all in a row, all different in what they do. But Milroe is Hurts. He's Tua. He's Bryce.
He's a little bit of all of them.
He's worthy of that. He's absolutely worthy of comparisons. He's different. I think he's more similar to Hurts than the other guys in terms of skill set. And I think that's kind of what he is going to be in the NFL, which, by the way, is pretty significant because Jalen Hurts makes $300 gazillion because he's good at it. I think Milroe's got that future or that upside for sure. And Jalen he just another leveled it last night.
How about number one, his wearing a Jalen Hurts shirt last night underneath all this stuff? That was pretty cool. Secondly, go back to the Jam Miller wheel route where we started all this. Look, we can talk about his deep ball's been there. We knew that. We knew he threw a pretty deep ball. Now I'll say this on the last touchdown. I mean, I'm always going to believe this was the way he intentional, the way he wanted it to be. He throws it sort of back shoulder to Ryan, so only Ryan can get it on a deep ball, which was kind of nuts because that's a long.
DeBoer said it was a great throw. DeBoer said Milroe was coached to throw it there. I mean, DeBoer went out of his way to point out that was a throw they had worked on, and then Jalen did it perfectly.
But the wheel route pass, Jimmy, see, that's what he hadn't been doing well. And he put it in there the same way Bryce Young would put a wheel. You remember sometimes Bryce Young would throw it not only just where only you can catch it, it's like you have to catch it. You have to.
That was like Bryce's strength.
Yeah.
And Milroe's Achilles heel. And now it's a Milroe strength, which again, that's why I comp him to Hurts, because one thing you got to say about Hurts, he got better and better and better and better. And each year he was better, and each game he was better. And that improvement continued into the NFL and through the NFL. Milroe looks the same. He gets better and better and better and better. And I would hope NFL scouts notice that his getting better ain't over. There's more untapped potential there.
No, it is. It is definitely not over. And boy, something else that ain't over is this podcast because I want to talk about Kalen DeBoer for just a second, and then we got to get into the greatness that is Ryan Williams. But I'm going to tell you something. Last night, if you use Game Time, you save some money going to this Georgia game or going to any game. All you got to do is use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off that first order. And Game Time is so easy to download. There's no excuse for you not to have it anymore. Really, honestly, I'm mad at you if you don't have it at this point. You should have it. And go to Game Time. You'll love it. I've used it for NFL. I've used it for MLB. I've used it for college baseball, college basketball. Used it for college football, obviously. Used it for college baseball. Used it for concerts. You can use it for anything. Game Time's the best. And you get to see where you're going to be sitting, and you get to see the view from where you're going to be sitting, which is the best. That is awesome. It makes everything better. Game Time is just the app for you to go get these tickets. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. It's just the best. I'm not going to say it's better than blank. I'm just going to tell you it's the best, and then you fill in the blanks. I'm tired of doing all this work for you. I've been telling you, get Game Time and love it. And by God, you will. If you go to Game Time and you download this thing, you are going to love it. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. Another thing last night, I probably shouldn't tweet some of the things I do in situations like last night, but I did. And one of the things I did tweet that I liked, I'm sorry, you shouldn't laugh at your own jokes, but I like
lose the account again.
I shouldn't, but I did laugh at this one because it just made me giggle because I looked around and people were sending us pictures of Kid Rock and John Daly. And you say, oh, those are two pretty good icons. I mean, they're pretty superstar, right? Then they had Then we had Trump there. I'm not getting political. I'm just telling you he was there, so it's a big deal. Then we had whoever that Lauren something that was the runner-up for American Idol. I don't know pop singers or whatever.
Lauren. Well, yeah, she's a country singer. Yeah, Lauren Elaine.
Well, whatever.
Yeah, Lauren
she was there and she was doing her thing. Then last night, I got to sit in the box. I was very fortunate to sit in the box. I don't have a box. I was very fortunate. And Marcel Darius comes in our box. I got pictures. I'm going to send them. And Marcel Darius looked at me and said, "You're as big as me." I was like, "I hope not." And then I got pictures with Mark Sears and Cliff Omeruri and Chris Davis. Reese Davis. Chris Davis. That'd be bad. I don't want a picture with Chris Davis.
Well, it's Reese's son, to be honest. Yeah. Reese's son is Chris Davis.
I'm talking about that other Chris Davis that went 109 on us, Reese Davis. And they were just dudes everywhere. And I was like, Alabama's got a president, a guy running for president here. They've got Kid Rock and John Daly and Lauren, what's her name? Meanwhile, at Auburn, even Peyton Thorne's parents left early. I mean, that's a pretty big comparison, right? It's a pretty big difference.
I didn't see a lot of that Auburn-Oklahoma game. I didn't see a ton of it, but Auburn put up some offensive numbers that were stunning to me. The numbers that they lost the game.
We will get to that game. But, Jimmy, before we get into the Ryan Williams part, I just want to say, I think the beauty of this game is I think this allowed Kalen DeBoer to learn a lot. It allowed him to see, okay, I'm not in Washington anymore. I mean, you get a big lead, and then sometimes the other team ain't going away. And Georgia wasn't going away. And he saw the environment. And he got to learn all these lessons with a win. We got to learn how to come back. He also, I think, I hate it when people say this, and I probably shouldn't. I wonder if it felt like we may have pulled off the gas a touch, not in the sense that we quit throwing and started running so much, because frankly, I thought the running backs may have even been a little underused if you want to go big scheme here. But I think we maybe quit taking so many deep shots, and it felt like we got a little simple with, okay, we're going to throw it on first down, then maybe run Jalen Milroe on second down, and then hope for the best on third down. And we also have to tell some of our guys who catch the ball, like Justice Haynes caught a ball late, he's got to get that first down. He's got to go get that first. He was this short, and he's got to go get that.
I would say I thought it was a poor play by Justice Haynes not making the first down.
Yeah, I
know it's going to be hard, but hey, you're supposed to find a way to do that.
Jam
Miller on a 4th and 1, I didn't think played it well either. I'm not saying, hey, it was there. It was there for the taking. He just made a poor decision when he cut left. Right. He made a poor decision, just like Justice Haynes should have. But hey, these are still young players. Even Jam is a true junior, and Justice Haynes for sure. It's not like, hey, they're not as good as we said. No, it's not that at all. It's just that all these players make errors. Even Milroe makes errors. They're college football players. But yeah, Justice Haynes had to find a way to make that first down. It was there. He just should have found the way, and Jam's got to jam that ball up inside and find that yard.
Like what you did there. Also want to shout out to all the tight ends. I thought they played pretty well. Shout out to Emmanuel Henderson. We said there's going to be a receiver that makes a catch. That's a big deal. And Emmanuel Henderson made one early. Appreciate him. But now we got to talk Ryan Williams. I'm flabbergasted. I mean, and you know how much I hate that word. I'm flabbergasted by this guy's talent. His catch, it almost the way the bobbly catch. Which one do you think was really better? Like, forget the part where the last one won the game. Which catch do you think is better? I'm still going to go the last one, I think, because, first of all, the throw was perfect. But then the way he had to contort his body to make the catch, to concentrate and make the catch, right? And then have the wherewithal to stop and be like, gather himself in a split second, then take off and then make two Georgia people run into each other, cut back in another direction and outrun them both to the end zone is remarkable. But the bobbly catch, and y'all know what I'm talking about in the third quarter, where like it's tipped up and it's just like a juggling act, and he comes down with it. Part of me was like, Brian, did you do that on purpose? Because it was too easy. That was how I was.
Playing with his food. He's playing with his food.
Well, he is only 17. Maybe he is still playing with his food. I mean,
yeah, I'm just, this has been a rhyme. I think it justifies, obviously we're 50% silly when we say it, but we've talked about Ryan Williams going way back, 10th grade Ryan Williams. We bought him up as much as anyone. And it is a little frustrating that was the Ryan Williams podcast, and now there's an actual Ryan Williams podcast, and I feel like we should get royalties there because this was our idea. And our idea wasn't Ryan have his own podcast. Our idea was there needs to be a full-time podcast about Ryan.
Yeah, it wasn't like Ryan took it to another level. We're like, Ryan, other people are supposed to talk greatness about you. You don't have to get on and tell us anything. We already know. But we've been doing this show for a while. It's like, one of us is Ryan and one of us is Jalen Mbakwe. And listen, we're again to add to the oddity of this game that two freshmen make essentially the game sealing plays that both on either side of the ball that both happen to wear number 2 is bizarre. I mean, people can say what they want to, but that's just kind of weird. That's a little more than coincidental to me.
Yeah, my buddy Drew D. Arman from Huntsville Radio, he had this tweet, and it was great. I'd had this thought, but he tweeted it first, so I'm going to give him credit. Hollywood is this cool mixture of Devontae Smith, who he's a lot like. He's so much like Devontae, and we've said that for forever because that's obvious. But there's also some David Palmer in him in terms of the magic. I mean, David Palmer had a magic to his playmaking that you're like, other people can't do what he does. And I think Ryan is a combination of Devontae Smith, who he's very like stylistically as a player, and the magic of David Palmer. That's really what he is. And boy, that's like saying, well, as an actor, he's sort of like Meryl Streep and sort of like Marlon Brando. I mean, like you're talking about two of the most gifted offensive players to ever play football at Alabama or anywhere, college football anywhere. And he's like a perfect meld of those two guys.
When he's turning into the athlete in just 5 games into his career, that's what's even more unbelievable. I mean, I'm telling you, on the way home, the ride home took a while. And I was listening to the national show, and all that guy could talk about was Ryan Williams. That's all he could talk about. And I know when I replayed the game last night, and I listened to Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit, all they could talk about was Ryan Williams, it felt like, right? And he's reaching that status. And I don't want people to think I'm going over the top or hyperbolic here, but even with these few games, he's reaching that status of like a guy like a Michael Jordan. And stop. I know you want to slap the radio, right? I'm not saying Ryan Williams is Michael Jordan. He's obviously better. No, I'm kidding. But no, what I'm saying is that when Jordan, in a big game, if there was a big moment and Jordan got the ball, everybody stopped and it was quiet. It was like, and even sometimes in a not big game and it was a blowout, you got quiet because you're like, what is this kid going to do? What's this guy going to do? And that's how Ryan Williams is right now. When the ball's in the air in his general direction, you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. This is going to be fun. I mean, it was the juggling catch. He catches it. I mean, Kirk Herbstreit was at a loss for words. He caught it, and then he does his little signature move thing. Jimmy, he adjusted his face mask and had remembered to do the pull out my mouthpiece before I crossed the goal line thing on his big long touchdown to end the game. He remembered to do that. He had done all this other stuff, and he remembered to do it. And then I think he hit the dirty bird, which is just awesome.
The kid knows that he's a showman. He really is. I mean, I think I heard Bart Simpson use that term once, and I've used it ever since. But he's a showman. He puts Muhammad Ali was like that. It wasn't just, hey, I'm the best boxer in the world. It was he put on a show while proving he's the best boxer in the world for the fans. And I think Ryan does that, and that's why he's going to be one of the most marketable athletes of all time. Assuming he stays healthy, he'll be one of the most marketable athletes of all time because he has this natural ability to be a showman, to put on a show. It's not just, hey, I'm good at running routes and catching balls. It's, hey, I'm the show. And he does it in I don't know if humble's the right word, but he's not being a jerk out there. He's having a blast.
He's just being a young dude who I don't think it's cocky necessarily if you can go out there and do it every single time you do it. And I haven't seen him have one of those plays where you go, well, he's just a freshman. No. All I can think is, hell, he's barely human.
Maybe that kick return that got botched. I don't know how much of that was Ryan and how much of it was Cole. I haven't seen the replay yet. But
let's also talk about that later. Let's talk because I love Cole Adams being back. And by the way, he made a huge catch last night. But I love him being back. I don't love my return man having an elbow brace that looks like something out of Game of Thrones, though. Right?
Yeah. I mean, for right now, I just want Ryan. If Ryan can get his hands on the ball, I want Ryan returning punts and kicks just because it's more opportunities for Ryan to get his hands on the ball. And
wanted Cole to catch it and hand it to him. Just here, you take it.
I just hope everybody joins us all week for Locked On Ryan Williams and Locked On Cincinnati Bengals.
This whole time, if you're listening to the audio podcast, Jimmy's in a very dark room with a very bright light on his face and Cincinnati Bengals logo for some reason of his black shirt. And it feels like he is some kind of soothsayer that's in a crystal ball telling us, take the Bengals today.
I did wear it sort of intentionally, not for the show at all, but it's Sunday when we're recording this. And I don't have the shirt for this reason, but I do have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on my fantasy team. So when I woke up, it's like, oh, it's NFL Sunday. And I'm like, oh, I got to pull for Burrow and Jamar Chase. They're on my fantasy team. So that's why I put on the Bengals shirt.
Well, it's better than me. I feel like the door jam of galettes right now. So, I mean, and I had to run, take a shower right before this spot. I was like, Jimmy's going to smell me through the internet if I don't take a picture. So, all right.
Shout out to Justin, who sat near me at the game last night for a fan of the show, and Ben, who I talked to at the show, at the game, and Jimmy I met in Destin. We've had a lot of Locked On fans recently introduce themselves, and me and Luke appreciate that.
I did too, and I don't have time to remember all their names, and I couldn't because I had to write all this down last night trying to get ready for this thing, and I couldn't read any of it this morning. So anyway, that's going to do it for today's podcast, man. We're fired up. We're going to do this early and often the rest of the week, and y'all be ready because Jimmy and I are going to rewatch this game forever and ever and ever, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we appreciate you listening, and until next time, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.